Hello, everyone. Welcome to another recording in the Science is the New Religion series that Michael has put together for us from Germany. So welcome.
Hello, dear Brett. You see, with all the horoscopes, there's a big difference between the professional horoscope and all this gibberish stuff in all the illustration magazines and all these like. So horoscope means an observation of diagram of the heavens showing the position of planets on any given day used by astrologers. Comes from hora, hour means a season or a period of time, and scopus means the watcher. And that, of course, is the same as in the Bible, which is forbidden the observer of times, which is the observer of the hour. Yeah. So in ancient times, they had all these magicians and then also astrologers to decide whether the time is right to do this or to do that, or just to avoid anything. Yeah, and so it is forbidden in Deuteronomy 18:10. So an observer of times would mean the equivalent of an astrologer. Do you care to read it?
Oh, sure. Please. I will do that, Michael. Deuteronomy 8:10. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth, divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these are an abomination unto the Lord, and because of these abominations the Lord thy God doth drive them out before thee. Thou shalt be perfect with the Lord thy God.
Yeah, I think that has much to do with trust. In the days when I was using astrology and I was consulted by people, I think that it were mainly insecure people who just wanted to know about the future and all this stuff. So when we are now on that channel, in that regard of science, we are just looking into astrology. We are just looking into it to explain how the world is running and what is going on behind the scenes, at least a part of it. So that's my concern.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll comment on that too, because I was doing songs, writing songs, and making lyrics with these kind of words in there, and not thinking about it, just thinking, oh, this is this rhymes with this, and enchantment and all that, and I didn't really think about the implications of what Deuteronomy is saying because I didn't know about it. And when you're ignorant of the law, you break it.
Mm.
It's just that simple.
Mm. Yeah, so that's the case. And now we face the fact that we, since 2024, so this very year, we have the constellation of the planet Pluto, which is not a planet anymore, but what the heck, in astrology, he is still being used. So Pluto, a planet or small planet with an orbit of 248 years. So in each of the 12 zodiac signs of the zodiac, it has just been close to 20 years. So Pluto is associated with the Greek god Pluton, the god of wealth, and the god of plutocracy. So that means that just the rulership of few people who have the power, the ones in power, the powers to be. So these billionaires, corporations, and in the end it is just, of course, the biggest Antichrist church there is and there ever was. Pluto is linked to Hades, the Roman dis, god of the dead and the underworld. Pluto rules Scorpio, and we know what the Bible says about the scorpions in the Bible, in the New Testament. So, discovered in 1930 officially, was considered as the ninth planet associated with the underworld, like the hell with 9 circles. That must be Dante's, the Divine Comedy, Inferno. Yeah. With the 9 circles of hell, Inferno. So, Pluto represents the shadow, dark side of personality, dark side of sexuality, violence, abduction, car crashes, dark secrets, conspiracy theories, sex, death, underworld, nuclear power, wealth. So let's put it this way, it's the bigger brother of Mars. Yeah, bigger brother in terms of Mars is on a personal level. So if you're confronted by anybody directly, eye to eye, and Pluto means that you are confronted with society who wants you to get out of the way. So repressive authorities, governments, laws, yeah. So all these unpersonal things, government bodies. So this is just dark people, dark spirits, communism, mafia, car crash, plutonium, atomic energy, psychology, oil and petroleum, and this will also be then an issue in the upcoming next 20 plus years. And one website depicts Pluto in Aquarius from 2024, actually not 2023, but 2024. Automation, everybody equal voice, emotionally detached, control of the masses. Yeah, so let's look it up. Create any natal chart. You can create it for a person, so for a man or woman, and you can also create it for any event. So it will just pick out any desired date when anything has happened. You can check out the positions of the planets and constellations in the sky. Therefore, one did it on the natal chart of the first step, officially step of the moon landing. And there you will also see something interesting if you are familiar with the explanations of this so-called science of astrology. Yeah, so this is the middle of the heavens. So this red dot here is the middle of the heavens, called the MC. We will talk about that very soon. And very interesting for me, when I look up the first moon landing, is the planet of Neptune. Neptune means deception, and Neptune is here on the highest elevation and makes a square 90 degrees to ascendant and descendant. So that means the trickery of all sides. Yeah, so it's very interesting if you're just familiar with these kind of studies. Yeah, that's
Michael, you said this was during the moon landing?
They have indicated the time of the first step onto the moon. So the moon landing's first step. Yeah.
Wow.
First steps on the moon through NASA Central in Houston, Texas. Yeah.
Sheesh.
Ascendant.
Mission complete, as we say, huh?
Yeah. The ascendant here, so the cause and the root of everything is in Uranus, so in Aquarius, Aquarius. And the ruler of the first house, so the cause and the root of everything is then Uranus and also Neptune, because these are Pisces here, and then is Neptune. So the ruler of house 1 is standing in house 9. House 9 has something to do with religion. And he's having a square 90-degree angle square to ascendant and descendant. That means that there is a tension, and usually is seen as a negative aspect. Neptune would be the same as Poseidon in Greek. It's been seen the god of the oceans and also the god of deception and the planet of deception and psychology and everything. So when the ruler of house 1 is standing in house 9, it has a religious content. So the root and the idea behind this must be a religious content. It must be somewhere out there, because the house 9 is usually been seen as the house of foreigners. The intention of it is just to convince anybody of a religious context here in house 9. So, and it also has, for the same house where he is ruling, he's got a square of 90 degrees, which you can't see here. Usually it would be depicted here, indicated with a red line. And that would mean that you violate your own intent, which means that maybe this deception will be uncovered sometime. So that you can do much with it, but you see in elevation, the Mars, the Roman god of war, and the planet of deception, that means that is a mission with Mars, so has something to do with war or with a special interest, with force, being forced upon the people, a religious belief, and this is deception. So that would be one of the steps that you could take and you could interpret. Of course, people would say that, but that's also BS. Neptune is for psychology, that is the freedom of mind and transcendental transcendental meditation and all the stuff. Yeah, sure, but you can also fool yourself, right? So,
Right.
Neptune in a positive way would be then spirituality, and in the end it would be the love of all and everybody. But I don't think so that it has something to do with peace and love of everybody to just create the illusions filmed from a television set in black and white without any stars and with so much BS in it. So I would stick to Neptune as the planet of deception. And also, you won't use astrology for future events. First of all, in Deuteronomy 18:10 it is forbidden. And the second part is that we see here, we realize, we learn in the Bible in Matthew 24:29.
Matthew 24:29, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken.
Yeah, so that in the end, there is an end to astrology, been mentioned in the Bible, because the stars shall fall from heaven. So what's the sense in going into this? I rather stick to the Bible, because then I know the end.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It is not our duty to just calculate any events, because this would be forbidden. And also, there is no guarantee. Even if you do this professionally, you will have so much possible explanations and events at one given constellation that I don't go this route because it is forbidden. I just stick to the Bible and just stick to God, because God decides who will be successful and what will be the outcome in the end. Interesting enough, there are some rulers in ancient times who were just consulting astrologists. Like, for example, one of the best examples would be John Dee. Yeah,
Yes.
For
Yes.
Queen Elizabeth, he was an alchemist, he was a secret agent, he was an astrologer, and he had made divination with his crystal balls and all this stuff. Yeah, so Enochian alphabet, so codes and ciphers. What did Sherlock Holmes say? The world is running on codes and ciphers. Yes. Sure, when his brother in the fiction of Sherlock Holmes is the head of the British Secret Service. Yeah. So Prophecy and Power, Astrology in Early Modern England by Patrick Curry would be one reference to it. There are some people who also have been kept busy with the interpretation of astrological signs when it comes to biblical prophecy or biblical events. One of them is called Dr. Michael S. Heiser. He said that in 3 before Christ there was a constellation which would then refer to the later written prophetic book, the apocalyptic vision of the disciple John, so the book of Revelation. And he said that this constellation of Virgo, when you look into the night sky, this was then this happened in reality in the night sky in 3 before Christ. Michael S. Heiser was an American Old Testament scholar and Christian author with training in ancient history, Semitic languages, and the Hebrew Bible from the University of Pennsylvania and the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He exercised and work focused on the nature of spiritual realm in the Bible and about spiritual matters more generally, and he wrote more than 10 books on these subjects since 2010. He served as an executive director of the School of Ministry at Celebration Church in Jacksonville, Florida, and previously as scholar in residence at Faith Life Corporation. He ran the Naked Bible podcast and Miklat, a ministry to disseminate his scholarship. He also hosted the Paranormal podcast until 2021, which discussed peer-reviewed research on the paranormal. He had additionally been active in media productions around his area of interest and in response to popular presentations relating to spiritual matters, such as material in the Stranger Things series, and in rebutting ancient astronaut conjectures. So I can't recommend anybody when it comes to biblical interpretations, but at least this is quite interesting. He received a Master of Arts in Ancient History from the University of Pennsylvania and Master of Arts and PhD in the Hebrew Bible and Semitic languages from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. His area of expertise is the nature of the spiritual realm in the Bible, namely the divine council. example given in Psalm 82, and the hierarchy of spiritual order in the Bible. In many of his works, Heiser stressed the overarching importance and role of the divine council in the Old Testament. And Kevin Bowder, research professor of systematic theology at Central Baptist Theological Seminary, has referred to Heiser as the most prominent evangelical defender of the divine council interpretation of Psalm 82. He notes that Heiser has become an evangelist for the divine council theory, giving it wide exposure in popular books and articles and defending it through his blogging and other internet activities. Heiser spoke out critically against proponents of pseudoscientific ancient astronaut conjectures, especially as popularized by Zecharia Sitchin. And let us add Erich von Däniken, of course. Heiser appeared in Ancient Aliens Debunked as an expert on the Hebrew Bible and ancient Near Eastern text. He published 10 books regarding the meaning of various biblical concepts and other topics related to popular understandings of spirituality. In addition, he produced 2 works of fiction in the early 2010s. So what's new here? Personal life and death. He was married to Joanna, had 3 daughters and a son, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and then he passed away in 2023.
Oh, wow.
So much so. So we can assume that he's got some knowledge of the Hebrew Bible and Semitic language, okay? So let's look what I have found here. So he's got some YouTube videos there about pagan astrological religion versus ancient Judaism, early Christianity. So that's him talking about his lecture here about the fixed star constellation of Revelation 12. Some interpret the fixed stars also as biblical events. For example, the constellation Virgo, of course, would be very, very fitting because Mary was a virgin when she was impregnated. So she did not know, quote unquote, know any man before she had been impregnated by the Holy Spirit. So that is the core of the real Christian belief. So the constellation Virgo would be fitting for at least 2 reasons. First, of course, Mary as a virgin, born by a virgin, has been stated in the Old Testament. Brad.
Yes.
Isaiah. Yeah. I was right.
You were right.
7:14. Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Yes, Isaiah 7:14. Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel.
Emmanuel means God is with us.
Right.
And also interesting, Emmanuel. Yeah, El, like Elohim. Huh? So there's El also in it, at least now here in our system. Okay, so it would be fitting in Virgo that constellation once for Mary, because Jesus Christ has been born by a virgin, and secondly, because in September you have the sun in Virgo. So everybody who has a birthday in September, at least until September, I think it was the 22nd, 23rd, has his zodiac sign Virgo. And after Virgo, then comes Libra. But that would be fitting for the birth from a virgin and the sun in Virgo. So he says, the constellation Virgo is the only constellation that represents a woman in the zodiac. It's quite obvious, huh? For 20 days, Virgo was clothed with the sun, but the exact day when the moon was under her feet, referring of course to Revelation 12, could only occur during an 80-minute period within that span of days. Yeah, so here you see here Jupiter, which is the king then, the sun and the moon, and the sun is in Virgo, so the Virgin. So above her Virgo head is the lion. That's just too small here, but you have to trust me, and we can also we can insert a link to that special video. Above her head, so above the head of the Virgin, is a lion, and lion means the tribe of Judah. I don't look it up in the Bible now. I know that it's there, and I have read it. Below her feet is a Libra or Scorpio, which are the next signs then on the fixed star horizon, Libra and Scorpio. And Scorpio also means the dragon. And Hydra, so the snake. So he said, this is the constellation in the heaven. Yeah, so speaking of Revelation 12, that John saw a vision and saw that I saw a great wonder in heaven. And that's what all the people rely or refer to. It's very interesting. But that would mean that the three wise men coming from the east must have severe knowledge about constellations and their real meaning. It's also very interesting that they did not have the knowledge where that location of birth should be. It's very interesting. So they did not know the entire Bible, obviously. They only could watch the stars as a sign of God that something was about to happen. And that's not far-fetched to assume that they had given knowledge by Daniel, the prophet, so that Daniel could see from the prophecy that he has received by God himself, the 1260 days and all the stuff. They knew exactly from the time they began to build the temple in the book of Daniel until the Messiah was about to come, right, Brett?
Right.
So,
Exactly.
so they knew the time span, and then they saw the fixed stars constellation. So this is what we shall believe how it occurred, and then they were being sent by the star. They followed the star to Jerusalem. It's very interesting. I'm not 100% sure how that happened. I think these are one of the real mysteries of the Bible. Yes, you can have any opinion, but I would rather stick to ask God about this matter than to just place a finger to the one or the other. Brett is
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
What I just want to know. You see that? Do you really think that others in Judea, in Israel, in Rome, did not know about the book of Daniel? So obviously they knew the time, because Herod was just about to kill all these infants.
Right.
Yeah, so they knew when time was due. But the star of Bethlehem, this is a mysterium. Really, yeah. So, but it's not part of this. Maybe it will reveal someday to me. So, and you can also refer to the Lord's Prayer, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." So it might be that for certain events God is just showing by constellations in the sky, because that would also mean that, of course, he is the creator of sun, moon, and the stars. So that he set it as a purpose for the times and seasons and days, months and years, of course.
Yep, that's right, Michael.
Yeah. So it's just only for science. Yeah, let him be for science. Okay, yeah, for science. Genesis 1:14, science. In the sense of a signal, a flag, a beacon, a monument, an omen, a prodigy, an evidence, mark, miracle, sign, token. So let them be for signs and seasons and for days and years. This is, you see. Yeah.
That includes miracles.
that includes miracles, and that includes events happening happening in the sky,
Yes.
which are, and this is my problem with it, which are only visible in the night.
True.
But these are signs and could also be interpreted as omens.
Mm-hmm.
So this includes, of course, sun eclipses and moon eclipses and this. So the Lord can also communicate with stars and by wonders and miracles, of course. They will be done on earth as it is in heaven, but signs also can mean omens. But, of course, the three wise men, they could not know the prophecy of Revelation, because that has been written close to 90 years after Jesus Christ has been born. Very interesting. Michael Weiser says, the September 11th, 3 before Christ date, also corresponds to Rosh Hashanah, Tishri 1, New Year's Day for Jews, and the Day of Trumpets. Tishri 1 was also the New Year's Day of the civil calendar according to the calendar accepted in Judah during the divided monarchy. That is, it marked the first day of the reign of every new Davidic king. You see, I have to believe it because you can't study everything. So, but this is the hypothesis that he came up with. And this would be the ephemeris, so the star table for September 4 before Christ, because there is no year 0. You have to add 1 year, which is then -3 of Jesus Christ. So when you then come up with 9/11, September 11, you got the entire positions here of the heavenly bodies of that very day. So the sun, of course, is in 15 degrees Virgo, which, when you depict every zodiac sign with 30 degrees, it is in the midst of Virgo. And my former astrology teacher once told me, he said, yeah, you see that you have to understand when something is in the midst of a zodiac sign, it is by far the most powerful. So 15 degrees Virgo would be the equivalent to our calendar of September 11. My problem is that I know that they have forged and faked the calendar from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar, and I won't rely on any data in this world. But at least it would make much sense for many other occasions, for many other reasons, of course, also.
Right, because the current calendar is what's accepted and used by everyone. So therefore, it has its what should we say? Its power, you know.
Yeah, I got another problem with that. You see, the Gregorian calendar.
Mm-hmm.
At the time of Jesus Christ's birth, there was a Julian calendar for Julius Caesar, of course. Yeah.
Of course, this is all corrupt power, is what I meant. You know.
Yeah,
it's
but
not.
When this, I know.
Right.
The problem is when they switch the calendars from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They said that they have missed the date by 10 days to reinstate the association calculation to the date of Easter. Yeah, you see, they have advanced the date by 10 days. And this is my first problem. My next problem to rely on this is the thing that they openly admit. But do we know what they also have changed? 10 minutes here, maybe a half a day there. You see, that is an own study in itself. Where do you want to start? I don't have 500 years to make research on everything. And even that would be not sufficient. So I won't rely on this, because you are just always in their system. You are just always using their calendar. You are just using their times and all the stuff. What is logical to me is that some people can interpret some things. But I think, let's put it this way, when we see the Star of Bethlehem, which was going in front of them, it has been depicted in the Bible, was a miracle of God, then these wise men, however they are, however or how much they were chosen by God. Otherwise, they would not have met Jesus Christ in person. Yeah, so that's not hard to come with this conclusion. But I won't advise anybody to go into astrology to find out the constellation of Jesus Christ and all the stuff, because I think you always heavily rely on their system, and that's not what your Heavenly Father is trying to do. Your Heavenly Father tries to educate you to become a real reborn Christian, that you just obey the Lord, and the Lord forbids in Deuteronomy 18:10 the consultation of an observer of times. We are just doing this here to put our finger to the nitty-gritty, that there are traps everywhere.
That's right.
So now we are just facing the fact that we are just having this Pluto ingress. So the Pluto enters the next sign. He needs more than 20 years for every sign. He enters now Aquarius. And this is a study on its own, because these are transformations, these are changes which are not only on a national basis or just a personal level, but these are impersonal, these are average transformations, society transformation, worldwide transformation. And as Pluto is the lord of the underworld, you see that the association that people draw are usually not very positive. In the 5th century before Christ, the zodiac, so the 12 signs, was standardized to be 12 signs of exactly 30 degrees each, and they have developed then these star tables, or the positions of any planets, the ephemerides. And then this astrology has been developed. And there are some people who are just claiming there are 13 signs, but not 12. But you see that 12 months always was standardized, and also that was then 4x3, so 4 seasons, 3 months each season. So any uneven number is very hard to explain logically, because you have obviously 4 seasons, for example. And so there are many things which are pointing to the cycle of 12 zodiacs. Of course, nowadays they come up with the 13th sign of O.Fr, the snake holder, sure, serpent, yeah. So the zodiac is nothing else than the division of the ecliptic, so an imaginary band around the Earth, if you depict it as a globe. What happened then was a shift in terms of the rulers. When the Persian Empire took over, then astrology was not restricted to royalties and elites, but there's now also the start of individual astrology. So when you see before Christ, when Pluto, this is the symbol for Pluto, and Aquarius, which is the sign here of water, Aquarius, many people are totally confused with Aquarius, because Aquarius seems to be a sign of water. You know, there are also 4 elements. Here in the Western Hemisphere, there are 4 elements: fire, water, earth, and air. Interesting enough, in Chinese, they got also these 4 elements, but also a 5th element, which is then wood or metal. Interesting. So they have a 5th element there. So an uneven system. So now we here had an even system, but Aquarius, although it appears to be water, in German it's very interesting. It's called Wassermann, which means the waterman. Yeah, so Aquarius, aqua means water, of course. Aquarius is sign of the air, so it has something to do with spiritual things. That's one thing that many people don't get right. They think that, okay, yeah, it looks like water, must be a water sign. No, actually it is an air sign of the air. So in the period before Christ, Hellenistic astrology, of course, Greece, as a system is thought to have originated in Egypt somewhere around, as well as other mysterious texts that were attributed to Hermes Trismegistus and Asclepius. You know that guy with that serpent staff who was about to heal people, and that's the same symbol that you will find with the caduceus or serpent staff in your pharmacy or in your drugstore, right?
Right.
So they invented the fourfold system of planet signs, houses, and aspects. The original Greek word of horoscope means I can't remember to define horoscope using what the original word meant, mysterious, but there's definitely, it was probably happening in Alexandria. Oh, you know that Bible stream coming out of Alexandria with Origenes and all the stuff. So with all the people who tried to get rid of the divine aspect of Jesus Christ, for example. So
It's the corrupt stream of the Bible. Yeah.
corrupt stream of the Bible, yes. All the stuff which is surrounding the library of Alexandria, you can guess that there are many Gnostics and occult things happening and stored there.
Exactly. Bingo.
Yeah. So in one of the Pluto and Aquarius periods was the invention of paper. So that means also the transformation of information. Yeah, so it was not then being recalled by memory or just mouth to mouth. It was then being written down on paper and in books and papyrus rolls and scrolls and all this alike, and so you had another form of information to pass over to other people. So that was the invention of paper. And what's interesting is that the earliest known extant paper fragment from China dates to approximately 179 to 141 BCE. A fragment of paper that survived from China that shows that this new technology essentially is a commerce, because from paper you would get eventually like paper money. Yeah. In Egypt they had developed papyrus that had been using for centuries, which they had made out of skins of dead animals to write upon. So this Pluto and Aquarius periods often has something to do with China. China keeps coming up super regularly, super frequently, in very important ways during different Pluto and Aquarius periods. Although, once again, I have to remind me, officially Pluto has been discovered in 1930, but you see that this is exoteric. Yeah, what do we know? Maybe Pluto is also just a code for something else. Not only Pluto is there, but maybe there are some other constellations which are similar to Pluto. Or what else? I don't buy this, that it happened so much during a Pluto and Aquarius periods, and Pluto has only been discovered some 90 years ago, so there is something fishy about it.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he says it has been really important in terms of increased connections and awareness between China and the world when you think of the Silk Road. So these are the dates, or these are the times actually where Pluto was in Aquarius from 700 BC to present day. This is very interesting because that is during the time of Babylonian captivity. This is during the time of the persecution of the apostles. This is during the time when the Jesuits have been founded, 1540, and this is during the time of the French Revolution.
Yes.
And now we face the same constellation as where the Reformation took place, and the Counter-Reformation took place, and the French Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be something now, if they go this road.
Yes.
If they go this route. Pluto in Aquarius. Yeah. 250 years. Every 250 years. Pluto is associated with the principle of elemental power, death, and intensity. Actually, Pluto has been seen as the ruler of Scorpio. And what are scorpions been seen in the Bible?
Oh, stinging scorpions.
So
Yes.
in European astrology, the ruler of Scorpio is Pluto, and the second ruler of Scorpio is Mars. It's not that much better then. Yeah, so, yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's been seen as transformation. It has something to do with taboo, mysterious. It has something to do with the occult, with death, and of course with oil. Because oil is coming out of the ground, of the underground, you see. It's just dark and it's just burning and all the stuff. Yeah, yeah. So the problem is that the Pluto is just has no effect whatsoever, but it's just been seen as a symbolic interpretation of what something should mean, symbolically based. That means the meaning in your hypothetical belief. So when you look back to the last time when this constellation occurs, yeah, it has a long orbital period of 248 years, more than 2 centuries. So that you have to take quite a big step behind to see what Aquarius and Pluto in Aquarius actually means. And you can study that for extended periods of time. Mesopotamia. They had 10 different colleagues of astrologers that they were all set up around Mesopotamia who would watch the sky and send their reports to the king, not to the usual people, to the king. Yeah, we actually said this astrologer here have a bunch of records of their reports of cuneiform tables from that time, and in fact, you see, have much things that have survived until this very day. Yeah, most of what survives of our information about Mesopotamian astrology survives, and this is just the beginning of modern day that you can prove or just at least look at some things which has been surviving the entire thousands of years. And from this time, due to these vast libraries were compiled in the century, especially when Mesopotamian astrology was at its high point and being a state support endeavor. One of the things that brought it up for me is the reason why Mesopotamian astrology was a state supported endeavor at that time. It made me think of this book and the introduction to this book. I had read a few years ago the title The Art of Divination in the Ancient Near East by Stephen M. Moll. And a huge chunk of most of what survives of our information about Mesopotamian astrology survives. He has this paragraph and this introduction. I want to read it really quickly, where he says, knowledge of the future promises not only security and stability, reaching far beyond the present, but also enormous advantages over those without access to such knowledge or science so-called. That means the big advantage of the rulers in place or the powers to be is that they got much more knowledge. They know what they are going to do. The ability to glimpse what is still to come thus becomes almost automatically a highly desirable and jealously guarded quantity. Yeah, is an instrument of domination. That is not forbidden in the Bible because only God knows what's going on. They want to translate cuneiform tables with artificial intelligence. Happy birthday. Yeah. The oldest astronomical diary is dated 652 before Christ. In the 5th century before Christ, the zodiac was standardized. And now they come up with the 13th sign, which is the serpent holder. But now we got Pluto in Aquarius. This is the time span. I start with 6285 CE, Common Era, or just AD, Anno Domini. You see, I want to get rid of Jesus Christ. Around 60 CE, the West has become aware that silk was not grown on trees in China, but it was spun by silkworms. The Chinese had purposely kept the origin of silk a secret. And this is from the website World History Silk Road. But it's not that interesting. Now it gets more interesting. interesting is it's in that time period about a great fire in Rome took place on July the 18th, 666, 64 Anno Domini, where 70% of the city of official history has been burned and then later ended up being rebuilt. It's interesting, huh? And of course, what was the effect out of the burning city Rome, Brad?
What was the effect? Oh, gee.
That was the Emperor Nero, who has been blamed for this.
Right.
Yes, and so that was the start, at least one of the most important items of the start of the persecution of Christians. 64, when there was fire in Rome, Nero burning Rome. So that was.
They blamed it. They blamed it on the Christians then.
Yeah, they blamed it on the Christians. That now we are talking about Pluto and Aquarius from the past days. So from history, to learn from history. What they did then. And he says before the burning of Rome was a lunar eclipse 2 days before the event happened. Yeah. Yeah, the rest is not interested for the regular people. Yeah, so Nero had started the fire so they could clear the land and build his own extravagant palaces. And I thought it was really interesting and funny because you and I had just talked about another famous fire where there was a suspicion about who started it, which was in the 20th century the Reichstag fire in Germany, which also happened on an eclipse with Mars conjunct Neptune. Must be a coincidence then, huh? As we talked about in Eclipses episode. So there is so much interesting stuff, I can only tell you. The Reichstag fire in Germany was famously, there was a suspicion about whether the Nazis started it's sort like a false flag. And you see then, the Reichstag's fire is nothing else than the repetition of Nero burning Rome to blame it on the Christians. That is the same scheme in the Reichstag fire of the German Reich, blaming it on the Jews.
Oh, I see. So are you saying these are marked by the eclipse?
I say these are within the period of Pluto in Aquarius.
Oh, okay. And that lasts how long, you said?
20 years. Yeah.
20 years.
20 years, yeah.
I see.
Every 250 years for 20 years.
I see.
So false flag is not new. Oh, I'm sorry, I just skipped it here a little bit. False flag. Yeah. Oh.
Nothing new at all. It's as old as Rome. Yep.
Yeah.
Or older than that.
Yeah, they say that Nero took his life officially 4 years after the Great Fire. I have not studied that. I do not know. 4 years after the Great Fire. Great Fire of Rome. You could do something with this, but we do not do this. We just want to find out what maybe, if it fits that we are not only living in the end times, but it fits that now they will just blame everything on the Christians. And I think, giving this signs, that would quite fit.
Yep.
He says, during that time, another major thing happened. That was the first Jewish-Roman war took place. And that is very interesting because now I think he comes up with that. 66 to 73 CE. So AD, of course, which falls exactly within the Pluto and Aquarius period where there was a Jewish revolt against the Roman Empire. So it's a revolution. It's like the French Revolution. It's like the Inquisition and the Reformation and Counter-Reformation. So it is about a revolution, a Jewish revolution against the Roman Empire. And this ended up leading to destruction of the second Jewish temple in 70 AD. Which was like a huge event in Jewish history because that's what then led to a Jewish diaspora, so what happened basically is that the Romans imposed heavy taxes and were interfering in Jewish religious practices, which led to growing discontentment or resentment as well as sporadic revolts. And according to Wikipedia, it says, in 70 CE, at the height of the First Jewish-Roman War, the Second Temple was destroyed by the Roman army led by Titus during the siege of Jerusalem. The second destruction of the temple was a cataclysmic and transformative point in Jewish history and led to the development of rabbinic Judaism as the primary form of religious practice amongst Jews worldwide. And if that is not a major event, the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, then I don't know what is.
That's right.
Yeah, so that was when Uranus and Pluto were both in Aquarius, which gives this one an extra oomph to it in the way that's similar to the 1960s, for example. 1960s, the age of the Aquarius and the revolution, sexual revolution and the Beatles and what else? Drugs.
So what you're saying, Michael, is that it's not really important that we follow the teachings of astrology, but that we pay attention because the elite use it against us.
Yes. They are sun worshippers. They have a solar system, and these are the people who have just under a certain cover been going on for thousands of years, starting in the land of what is it here? In the land of Nod, so east of Eden, being the first Freemason, building the Tower of Babel, being in Babylon, having their scribes and Pharisees, their magicians, their soothsayers, their observer of times, or enchanters, magicians, witches, name anybody. Not
Diviners,
following God,
yes.
but just worshipping the devil and his consorts, occultism, etc. So these have been taken over from the land of Nod, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greek, and then Roman. So that were the same people, but they were just being then used from the emperors for just their magical practices and to stay in power. So you see that it's the same thing around. They just exchanged uniforms, like Reinhard Gehlen exchanged the Nazi uniform in the Second World War, going to establish the CIA and then going to establish the the Israeli Secret Service. So it just, you put on this uniform in that age, you put on another uniform, but the scribes and Pharisees who are sitting in Moses' seat are always the same. These are the people who are just being the advisors of kings and rulers on the entire earth. And this is the Vatican since more than 1,000 years. But the Vatican is nothing else but the successor of the high priest of Greece. They are the successors of the high priest of Medo-Persia, and they are the successor of the high priest of Babylon. That's why Rome has been mentioned, the whore of Babylon.
Yes.
The apostate church. Because it's a succession. It's nothing new under the sun. It is just a succession. Now you see the destruction of the temple and the Jewish diaspora. That means that the Jew has been spread out to the entire world, so to speak, and by papal command, by a papal bull, have to live in ghettos. And they have been claimed to be the origin of diseases in the Third Reich. Yeah, come on. You see, this is just going on for centuries, and maybe they are just also using this ancient form of divination. Because it's nothing else than divination if you think that the sun is the creator of the universe and every planet has a force, and you see.
Right.
Yeah, so they can come up with everything. Maybe they destroy all the so-called knowledge on this planet. You see that if there are not any more books printed because of CO2 and of course of the forest and destroyed and what else, maybe everything has to be stored on hard disk drive. And maybe there is something like an electromagnetic impulse, EMP or what else, or maybe a solar flare. And he talks about it. Maybe you come out of the sun and just wipe out like all of our technology of the internet at this time or something like this. Then nobody could spread the word anymore, and nobody would know anything. Everybody would be totally dependent on the government. So they can come up with everything. If they block the sun or just make a magnetic pulse, if that is possible, I don't know. Or they come up with some energy, what else, frequency distortion or what else. So then life would be drastically changing on this so-called planet. And 99% of the people do not know what the Bible actually is and who Jesus Christ actually is, I think. And that's the sad part. You see, the Bible does not speak about that, billions of people will be saved. So it will be a hard test in the end for any of us. If we can
but it does mention that there will be numerous like the sand on the sea, Michael. So I don't know.
I think I give or take, I see it as a test of, you see that everybody has been
Well,
tested
yeah,
in the
you're
Bible.
absolutely right about that. We're going to be tested. It's tribulation, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
So
as far as limiting the amount of power that God has to save his souls out of this wicked construct, I have no idea. You know, I can't wrap my brain around that. I mean, I wouldn't want to limit it. I want to expand it if possible, but you know, that's not up to me, is it? I have no power in that.
So, but you can see that, as I've mentioned, these small examples here of the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem in that period, of the formation of the Jesuits as a reaction upon this Reformation and Counter-Reformation then, and the French Revolution. You see that now, since 250 years since the French Revolution, now we are just approaching the same kind of a period, at least in their pagan belief system. Yeah, and this would be very interesting. Yeah, so that if they would destroy all your computers and all your hard disk drives, so that many people would be completely lost.
Yep.
Yeah, you see because you see, you can destroy anything materialistically, material in this world, physically. But it's in the end, it's just a fate. What do you believe in? That's the essence of it. It's just faith. Yeah, saved by faith and not saved by money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
saved by grace. But
Yes.
not saved by works. Aquarius has been a synonym, of course, with technology. Uranus, it's more about computer age. So I think that computer will take over. It's not only artificial intelligence, it's just computer on a big scale. You pay digitally, everything will be monitored digitally. So that's just a digital word. 0 or 1, either you're in or you're out. There is no in between. There is no human interaction. Like if you would like to speak about the human interaction. There is no feeling. There is either you're in or you're out. Either you accept the mark of the beast or you starve and die. That would be really interesting to see how many people will be left over then. No, I'm not too positive about it.
Well, it's one thing to say that, and it's quite another to believe it, because you know, defining the mark is, you know, also a matter of how you are interpreting the scriptures. And this is one of the things I think I've come to really accept as far as reading James Aiken Wiley's book, The Seventh Vial. He speaks of the mark being the Latin name. And that seems to make sense to me. You know, this is ancient Roman. It's an ancient Roman thing. It's, you know, it's happening in modern times, and a lot of people are not aware of it yet. They're far from any kind of biblical historical restoration.
With the Latin name, you mean then Vicarius Filii Dei or what?
Well, that's the title of the Antichrist, but yeah, the Latin title actually is the mark of the beast, from what I understand. And it is a physical mark, because you know, this is a mark that the owners would put on their people, you know. It's just outside the realm of our history. We don't have any recognition of this. This is so long ago, or rather, it's been hidden. It's just like the whole Inquisition has been hidden. We don't talk about the Inquisition in school, do we? Maybe we joke about it because there was that Monty Python movies that were made that kind of hinted at it. You know, it's very rare you come across anyone talking about the Inquisition. And if you ask younger people that are only 10, 15 years younger than us, Michael, they never heard it. Never heard of the name. No, don't know nothing about it.
And question it, of course, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're unfamiliar with something, it's easy to reject it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's super easy to reject it.
Yeah.
Didn't happen, as far as I'm concerned. This one could say that. That's what I'm arguing. One
I
could
think
just say.
in any case,
Didn't-
not saying that Pluto in Uranus creates these things, but I think that in that time span,
It's an influence, yes.
yeah.
It's an influence. It's a worldly influence, and we can't ignore it. That's for sure.
So I guess when it is about Pluto is about that society is everything and the individual is nothing. And Uranus stands for freedom, individuality, free love and all the stuff. And the computer age and technology. That means that we are living in a technocracy. Yeah, so that everything.
Oh yeah, this is kind of how things were like. I forget now. Zbigniew Brzezinski. He wrote a book about it. I guess he's a Knight of Malta. Zbigniew Brzezinski.
Yeah, at least he's a Jesuit. That I would know. Yeah.
Very involved in forming the. Well, he wrote a book on the technocracy. I forget the name of it now, but.
Yeah. So. That's the thing that you do not need any planets for. You see the development quite clearly for certificate of WW identification. yeah. You see
I shouldn't have said that.
That's the So these are the first signs.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So 305 to 329 would be the next after the destruction of Temple. So that you see that 250 years close to plus minus later. We get the next Pluto in Aquarius period, which happened in the early 4th century. Constantine became the emperor of the Roman Empire. See?
Oh.
370, huh? In hoc signo. The Milvian Bridge, 317. And then later on he said that is the state religion, their so-called Roman Catholicism.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that was the next one. So yet if you just combine it with the religious events, then it really is something. And don't forget, Pluto only has discovered officially after their science in 1930. So I don't know if Pluto actually exists. So you see that I don't have the measurements to prove it. I have to believe it. And I have learned astrology, you see that 30 years ago. But the thing is that has officially only discovered in 1930. Interesting. How much of things they are using that we do not know. I would not dare to ask, and I don't want to know. You see that I think that we have been fooled big time anywhere. Yeah, so Constantine became the emperor of the Roman Empire, the head of the Roman Empire, and he fought a civil war basically after his father died on July the 26th, 306 AD. He literally just like a year into this Pluto in Aquarius period, and his troops proclaimed his emperor. So Pluto was at 0 degrees of Aquarius opposite the sun at 1 Leo. The reason why Constantine became emperor is important because what he would do once he got fully established about a decade later, and one of those was he issued the Edict of Milan, which permanently established religious toleration for Christianity within the Roman Empire in February of 313 CE. Interesting, huh? 313. I know the Bible has not been written then with the King James Bible with 313, but nonetheless, it is 13 in it, you see. So this is right in the middle of this Pluto in Aquarius period. Constantine basically legalized Christianity, which up to this point has been against the law, and it had been something that was even persecuted in some earlier periods. Like, for example, actually, I hadn't thought of this earlier, but this is actually interesting. Like Nero, for example, is a Roman Empire who had famously was said to have persecuted Christians, who were seen as being very extreme as like a religious group. So that was the Edict of Milan from Constantine the Emperor within that period of Pluto in Aquarius, where Pluto has officially not been not discovered yet. Interesting. Yeah, the Edict of Milan is not so much a proclamation as a bunch of letters. I think what happens to Constantine meets up with Licinius, a sometimes rival, and there's a marriage happening between their two families. So they're meeting to discuss matters of state and religion, and together they write out a letter that they send out to the provincial governors, sort of basically stating this. So it is kind of like basically during the course of this century, the empire very rapidly became a so-called Christian empire ruled from Rome. Can you see the hypocrisy in it?
Sure. Sure.
The Roman Empire became a Christian empire. No, the Roman Empire became a Catholic empire, a universal empire.
That's where he messed up.
Yeah. So, but Constantine was the pivotal figure and turning point as the Roman Empire who became so-called Christian but Roman Catholic and then pushed for that. Yeah, you see the forged Constantine donation, you see?
You're right.
So that's their basis. Their foundation is a bunch of
the
lies.
Isidorian decretals.
Yes, also, yeah. So that was the point for the Roman Empire who became a Catholic and then pushed for that. So that leads to, there was one other event that occurred with Constantine towards the end of the Pluto in Aquarius period, which is the first council of Nicea, occurred in May of 325 CE. And this is when Jupiter, Uranus, and Pluto were all in Aquarius. And it was interesting because this was the Jupiter return actually 12 years later of when he became emperor. And you know that Jupiter has been seen as the head god of the Romans, by the way. So, and it came back to... Jupiter came back to Aquarius during the first council of Nicea, so this was an ecumenical council. It was the first of many efforts to attain consensus in the church, consensus, not truth, through an assembly representing, what was supposed to be all of the different Christian groups. So what this did is establish the orthodox beliefs, but it also established which beliefs were to be rejected or were outside the bounds of Christian orthodoxy, such as Arianism, which was like a subgroup of Christians that had some beliefs that, like the mainstream, wanted to reject. So Constantine himself was the one that convened the Council of Nicea, and he was directly involved in some of the different things that occurred during the course of it. So that is very important in setting up. It's not just like he was legalizing Christianity, but he has also a major impact in terms of standardizing the Christian or the Roman Catholic Church in what things were part of the religion versus what things were thought to be heretical. Just before the first council of Nicea, in November of 324, he founds a new city on the city of Byzantium, which someday later be called Constantinople, and that will later be called Istanbul. But that is just before the first council of Nicea that he first sort of founds the city isn't built, but it's decided that that's where it will be built, I think right at that time. Interesting. He said one of the previous themes about astrology, one of the things that's really interesting here, and also immediately stood out about this to me, this Pluto in Aquarius period that lasts for 305 to 329, is that the intellectual attitude towards astrology as well as the laws against astrology started to change rapidly after the legalization of so-called Christianity, Roman Catholicism during this period. And it started to basically turn against astrology, where astrology had been something that was permissible and was done in the open and was respected, because the mainstream approach to so-called Christianity that was established at the time were antagonistic against astrology because of its emphasis on fate, especially among other issues with it. But the issue of faith versus free will especially, like astrology very quickly during the course of this period and shortly after it started going on the outs in social intellectuality, I think it is, at this time. So there was like a sudden intellectual shift against astrology, and not long after this, it started being made illegal to practice. colleague says, no one's soul needs saving if they were never responsible for their actions in the first place. If everything was fated, then no one can be saved because they were always destined to do whatever terrible things there, wind up doing. So yeah, there's something about Pluto going into Aquarius. Certainly seems to have a lot to do with human awareness of astrology and in sort of attitude towards astrology. I think when we get to the enlightenment, in a few cycles, in enlightenment,
France,
we see that
French
sort
Revolution.
of that, correct. We see that sort of that hostility to astrology resurface yet again.
Mm-hmm.
But this transit of Pluto through Aquarius means a challenge to astrology. They are going to have it pry from my code. I don't know what that is. Dead hands.
They pry it from my cold dead hands means like the old West. When they are talking about having a what do you call that? A duel. Where you go one gun against another gun.
I see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Only one man stands at the end.
Okay.
It's like the Old West. That's all you got to think of.
Yeah, so that it was in Pluto in Aquarius when this official state religion Christianity, official state religion Roman Catholicism actually was on the rise then, or the foundation of it at all. Yeah, so maybe Pluto is something else than it has been taught to us. Maybe these are some other events happening there that maybe they are just choosing the times. And so it's very interesting that we really see that the major things happened there in this period is the destruction of the temple, then the official state religion of Roman Catholicism during Constantine, then the Reformation and the counter-reformation of the Jesuits and the French Revolution. I think that's major impacts.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so you see that the shift is then when the state decides that this and that is the official belief, then also these so-called intellectuals, they shift from one belief to another. He says Firmicus Materos was alive during this period and he writes an astrological text at one point, but then just like a decade or two later, suddenly writes a Christian polemical text attacking divination and attacking the different pagan religions. So it's like in individualized, like people attitudes towards things started shifting very rapidly. And maybe that is also why they had just been steered by the dogma of the church or the dogma of the emperors then. So when it's forbidden, nobody talks about it. When it's allowed, everybody practices it. And when it's forbidden, then nobody has something to do with it. You see that it's always the same. And in the end, they claim, I just followed orders. Huh?
Right.
He said there can be a rapid going on from paganism to Christianity that may be one model to understand some of those shifts in paradigm or just in transformation. And you said you can also see it from the other way around, because when we soon in another session will approach the Middle Ages with the Reformation and Counter-Reformation, we have quite the opposite. We have in that area, we have then touched the matter of Reformation, and then out of a sudden comes the Counter-Reformation. So it's always two sides of a coin, but it's just a transformation. So much so. So these are intellectual shifts that completely transform society, and if you think about the Roman Empire going from paganism to so-called Christianity, that may be one model to understand some of those shifts. The ruler sometimes, changing, being involved in setting what's permissible versus what's not, and sometimes even trying to suppress certain other views or certain information. It's beyond revolutionary how fast this goes. Yeah, so the next period would then be 550 to 575, and that will be the subject of an upcoming period. But you see that in the next session we will have a Pluto in Aquarius session. We come to the Middle Ages and we come to all the stuff that we have mentioned before, and then we proceed to the next things coming up. And I think that you will see a pattern that the majority of people will always follow the powers to be, the rules, the governments, the laws and all the stuff. Then they just want to be left alone because they are on the broad path leading to destruction in the end. Yeah, that's the sad thing of it, but I think that we are just been approaching very interesting and revolutionary times so far.
Dangerous times, yes.
Yeah, I'm not going into this Pluto in Aquarius because I just believe in the effects of the planet. I believe that the powers to be, they are just searching for special days and just looking to certain calendars, the Jewish calendar,
Oh, yeah.
the
They're
Gregorian
looking
calendar.
to take advantage of the situation.
Yes.
Based.
Yes. So it has much to do with everything, but you see that is only just one tool to see that there are certain patterns running in the world which are not happening by coincidence. There are no coincidences. Yeah, look at the 9/11 events in Germany. I have talked about that last session. Yeah, look at so many artifacts, numerology, gematria, astrology. Yeah, so these are just tools, and we do not know what they are also using. Yeah, so I would not surprised if some leaders of the world, or let's say in the Vatican, they have special rooms for special consultations. If you know what I mean, and that's up to your own interpretation. So let's leave it this way. I think it's just very much, and looking forward to the next sessions about science is the new religion.
Yeah, Michael, wow, that was quite a bit to cover in this session, and we covered it. Thank you very much for your time and energy, and look forward to seeing everyone next time on the script, Michael's script, Science is the New Religion. Hope to see you then. Bye-bye.